everyone, and welcome back to my World of Tanks Xbox 360 guide. Today we are going to be talking about the French Tier 10 autoloader, the AMX 50B. So, let's talk about when you unlock this tank. When you unlock this tank, no research is required to unlock anything on this tank. Everything you see on this tank is what you get. Now, there are two heavy tank autoloaders in this game, and when people see that there's two, some people are like, well, which one should I get? Well, in all respects, the T57 Heavy is probably the best heavy tank autoloader in the game. Just because of its aim time, the rate of fire it can put out its shells, and it's not as big as target. And heavily armored. So you guys might ask, well, why would anyone go and get an AMX 50B then if the T57 Heavy is so much better? Well, there's a number of reasons. Yes, with all the downfalls of the AMX 50B, long aim time, not as high a rate of fire as a T57 Heavy, little less armored. It is a French tank, but it makes up for it with speed. And this is a taller target than but this thing makes up for it with speed. A great gun, accuracy wise. I mean, this tank is built as a hit and run tank. What you do in this tank is you find an opportunity, you unload your clip, and you get the hell out of Dodge. This tank moves fast, guys. This is no slow tank. You have a lot of options of what you can do in this tank. With the speed that you have, you can outrun all the other heavy tanks on the battlefield in this tank. And there is another upside to this tank. Believe it or not, even though this tank is lightly armored, do not underestimate the ramming capabilities of this tank. For any of you who play World of Tanks, if you guys have the E50M, or if you even played the E50 tanks on the German line tank, or on the German side tank line, you guys know that those tanks are great at ramming. E100s, Mouses, you know those tanks are good at ramming. Guess what other tank is great at ramming, and no one ever expects it? It's this tank, the AMX 50B. And you're saying, what? There ain't no way. This tank ain't heavily armored. Well, it's because of the way the front design of this tank is built, guys. This front of this tank, if you look at this, it's kind of like the front of the beak. This tank has like a pointed beak. It's sticking out right at the very front. Now, the way that this was designed, it reduces the amount of damage you take from ramming in the front. Yes, you can hit a mouse in the side and damage a mouse in this tank if you have enough speed. Now, don't get me wrong, you're going to take damage too, but you're going to damage the mouse also. Now, you don't want to ram a mouse in the front. That's just going to be bad. But you can ram a mouse in the side and even in the rear and do damage to a mouse in this tank. This tank is great at ramming because of its high velocity speed. And the way that the front of this tank is designed reduces the amount of damage this tank takes in the front. Which most people don't realize that. Now, that's not saying that you should go and ram everything you see and brawl in this tank. No. What I'm basically saying is you unload, this tank gets 4 shots in a clip. It is an autoloader osculating turret. I'm going to use this for an example. You go, you fire off all your rounds, and then you didn't kill them, but they're still on maybe like 300 health, or they're on a sliver health, they're on like 400 health. Get your tank up to speed, ram the shit out of them. You will kill them. Now you have free time to reload your clip, get the hell out of Dodge. This is what this tank is great at doing. Now, this tank by no means is a brawling tank. You shouldn't go and everything you see going full speed, 65 kilometers an hour, full speed ahead, and ram everything you see just because this tank is capable of doing it. And get up in faces and brawl. No, this tank can't brawl. But what this tank is great at is you need to keep your health points healthy about until the middle of the battle, when half of the enemy is dead or half of your team is dead. This tank becomes very, very dangerous whenever tanks have started taking hit points, tanks have started getting withered down. This tank will just eat those other tanks apart. So you just need to keep your tank healthy for as long as possible during the battle. Just keep it healthy, and this tank becomes very, very dangerous. Everyone will be afraid of you. So with that in mind, let's get down to the statistics and the math of this tank, shall we? Alright, so development of this tank started in 1951. They were improving it all the way up until about 1958. The tank never was mass produced or anything. Only one prototype of this tank was ever built. So now whether or not that tank is still in existence today or not, I do not know, but there was only one prototype of this tank that was built. So now let's talk about what you get on this tank. Turret, AMX 50B. Gun is a 120mm SA-46. If you played the AMX 50 120, that's the same gun. So it's the exact same gun, a little bit better performance. This gun seems like it performs a lot better on this tank. Tier 10 engine, Maybach 8 shell, 295F, guys. Pretty good engine right there. Suspension is the AMX 50B Tier 10, and Tier 10 radio, of course, SCR 619. But let's talk about the hit points of this tank. You get a healthy 2,100 hit points. It's fairly average for a heavy tank. Some of the other heavy tanks get about 2,200. I mean, you only have 100 more, really, than a medium tank. So I said you have to be careful in this tank with your hit points. Most medium tanks get about 2,000 hit points, so you only have 100 more than them. 100 less than most of the other heavy tanks as well, unless you're a Mouse or an E100 or FV215B. Those tanks have large health pools. Signal range, of course, is 750 meters. Speed limit of this tank. This is what makes this tank great, guys. This is one of the pros of this tank. 65 kilometers per hour, guys. This tank can book it. You can get some speed and you can ram. As long as you have this tank perfectly straight, at the enemy. Yeah, I mean, it has to be straight. That front beak has to take the entire blow. Bam. Oh, yeah. Speed limit backwards, not bad. 20 kilometers per hour. Pretty good for a heavy tank. Let's talk about the weight. 62.21 tons. Very light. Load limit, you'll be able to load up to 68 tons. But yeah, that's what I was saying. Everyone, if you know about the French tank, 62 tons is not a heavy tank for a heavy tank. And you're saying, what? You can ram? If you don't believe me, get in this tank and give it a try, guys. Ram something. Ram another tier 10. Ram a heavy tank, or something. Watch what this tank can do. But you have to remember, you have to have this tank. I mean, when you ram, it has to be perfectly straight. I mean, if you're angled, when you ram, that front beak is not going to take the blow. You know. But let's talk about the crew. The crew you get in this tank is a commander, gunner, driver, radio operator. A commander, gunner, and radio operator acts as your loader. You don't get a loader in this tank, but your commander, gunner, and radio operator acts as your loader. So if any one of those guys go down, there goes your loader. But let's talk about what you guys probably want to know about this tank. Let's talk about the armor. 170 millimeter of armor in the front of the hull. 30 millimeters on the side. 30 millimeters on the rear. But you're saying 170 millimeters. Well, believe it or not, the front, that 170 millimeters is pretty much that lower glacis there. This upper part, this upper plate is very, very troll. It is very sloped. Look at the sloping of this. This is very well rounded. You are going to bounce shots off the front of this tank. Very, very troll. So don't let that 170 millimeters fool you. That 170 millimeters is this lower part. Some of the higher upper part, some of the flat spots that you see on the front here, that's 170 millimeters. But the very, very front here, oh man. Let's talk about the turret armor. Front of the turret, 100 millimeters. 50 millimeters on the side. 30 millimeters on the rear. Now, once again, don't let that armor rating fool you. 100 millimeters on the front. That does have sloping. It's this basically this frontal part. You see where this turret connects to the body. You see this line, this V-shaped line. This upper part, you will ricochet shots off this upper part unless they hit your commander hatches on top here. These little bubbles. Now this lower part all the way around here, the turret ring. Very, very weak indeed. That is about 100 millimeters. It's very, very weak, very flat. But the upper part is very, very troll. You can bounce some shots. So what I do whenever I'm in this tank, whenever I'm firing shots, I'll move my turret from side to side. Because it is a rounded turret. So you guys, whenever you fire a shot or you've unloaded your clip and see someone aiming at you, they're probably more than likely going to aim at your turret because you're such a big target. And it's very easy to pick your turret. But what I do is I wobble my turret back and forth. I'm constantly moving my turret and trying to, if they're going to aim at my turret, to ricochet a shot. But you do have very big commander hatches on the top of this tank. Very flat flat spots at the top of this tank, as you can see. Let's talk about the engine power of this tank. This tank gets 1,200 horsepower engine, guys. Yeah, it's amazing. That's why this tank can bucket so well. It does get a horsepower to weight ratio of 19.29 horsepower to ton ratio. That is not bad for a heavy tank. You can pop in and out very, very easily in this heavy tank. I mean, it's no light tank or medium tank, but you know what? It is pretty good for a heavy tank. Transverse speed is 36 degrees per second. Very, very good as well. It's going to be very, very hard for light tanks and medium tanks to circle around you. Now, here is a great thing about this tank. fire chance in this tank is only 15%, guys. That is below average. Below average. So that is good. Usually the average for a fire chance is usually about 20%, 15%. So if that's any indication on what kind of equipment that you need to put on this, there's one right there. And we'll get into that here in a second. View range. View range, 400 meter view range, but that's pretty much standard on all Tertians. You can get that view range up with equipment and stuff. The turret traverse is also 36 degrees per second. So if you want to think about that, if you're traversing your turret and you're traversing your hull, that's going to basically add up to about 102 degrees per second. It's going to be very, very hard for like light tanks and medium tanks to circle around this tank. They're very hard. Let's talk about the damage that a shell of this tank does. Now you get three different types of ammunition in this tank. You get AP, you get APCR, which is armor piercing composite rigid rounds, and you get HE, which is high explosive. This tank doesn't fire heat. Now the shell price for the AP is very cheap indeed, believe it or not. Is 1,060 silver. Usually more tanks have slightly higher silver prices on their AP rounds. Fairly cheap, but not bad. The high explosive rounds are 900, and APCR is going to cost you guys around 12 gold. Now, your armor piercing and your armor piercing composite rigid rounds are going to do about 400 standard damage when it penetrates and hits and you do damage. So on average you're going to do about 400. Now the HE is capable of doing 515 average damage with a shot with a splash radius of 2.42 meters. Not great. So basically if you miss your target, you miss. No coming back. But just letting you guys know now, do not load high explosive rounds in this tank. This is an auto-loading tank. Very hard for you to switch between rounds. Don't do it. Now, let's talk about shell speed. As everyone probably knows by now, your APCR travels faster. But this is going to be something that this is going to be something a little different. This tank is kind of like a not. Well, it's not really reversed, I should say. I'm going to explain to you what I meant there in a second. Armor piercing and high explosive rounds are going to travel at 1,067 meters per second, while your armor piercing composite rigid rounds are going to travel at 1,334 meters per second. Now let me explain to you something. Armor piercing composite rigid rounds travel very, very fast. But the farther that they have to travel, the less penetration power they lose over a distance. If that makes any sense. Armor piercing rounds don't lose any armor penetration over any kind of distance at all. Armor piercing composite rigid rounds, penetration over long distances. Yes, they travel faster, but that's why I was saying it's kind of like a role reversed. At some point, the armor-piercing and armor-piercing composite rigid rounds at a distance are eventually going to become the same, and the armor-piercing composite rigid rounds is just going to end up dropping its penetration value. So you have to make sure, be careful at the distance that you're using your armor-piercing composite rigid rounds. And that, heat, I'm going to say this one more time. I know I've said this in other videos. Heat keeps its velocity, but the thing that heat hates is trying to penetrate something. That's where it loses its penetration power. Not very good. Heat hates angled armor and spaced armor, so you have to hit flat surfaces with heat. Let's talk about the damage per minute. Damage per minute, armor piercing, heat, or your HE and armor P and APCR is going to give you 2,560 average damage per minute. So to put that into perspective, you can take out a FV215B in 1 minute. Your high explosive rounds, if all of them penetrate, they do have to penetrate, is capable of doing 3,296 hit points per minute. So you could take out a mouse in a minute, but that ain't gonna happen because explosives are never gonna penetrate. But let's talk about the penetration powers of the ammo. Armor piercing gets 257 millimeters of penetration. Very, very good. APCR gets 325 millimeters of penetration. And your HE only gets 65 millimeters of penetration. So do not load high explosive. Come on. You're going to have to get in the ass. You're going to have to butt sex people for that one. Let's talk about the rate of fire of this tank. You're going to be able to fire off 6.4 rounds per minute in this tank. That's with upgraded crew, good equipment, stuff like that. Reload time in this tank is about 30 seconds. One of the other downfalls of this tank, T57 heavy tank autoloader, reloads in about 25 seconds. But I'm going to tell you something, guys, right now. I've been playing this tank. I haven't played very many games in this tank, but I'll tell you something. That 30-second reload time doesn't feel like 30 seconds at all. But I do have brothers in arms in this tank, so the reload time probably is down some, but 30 seconds. Let's talk about the clip size of the turret, of the osculating turret that you get. Clip size 4. Get 4 rounds. Reload time between shots is 2.5 seconds. So you're already going to have a shell loaded into the chamber. So you fire a round, bam. 2.5 seconds later, bam. 2.5 seconds later, bam. So, you know. Now, here's an upside of this tank. Accuracy, 0.35 meter accuracy. Very good indeed. Better than some of the sniper tanks on this game. Tank destroyers. Better than some of those tank destroyers. Aim time, 2.5 second aim time, guys. Now, gun depression and gun elevation. Now, believe it or not, this tank doesn't have bad gun depression. That is fairly good. But downfall of this tank is you only get 12 degrees of elevation. Not great. If you're trying to aim up at something, you're going to have a very, very hard time of aiming up at your targets because of 12 degrees of gun elevation. But you do get good gun depression. 8 degrees, you can aim down on your enemies. But the reason why you get 12 degrees of gun elevation, pointing your gun in the air, is because of this turret. It's an osculating turret. You can't aim it up. The back hits your ass. The head of your turret hits your ass, so that's something you're gonna have to live with. Ammo capacity, a healthy 56 rounds, guys. So, you know, you have a healthy supply of ammunition, but you can't go ape shit. You could very well go through your ammo very, very fast if you're not careful. So, let's talk about the camo values of this tank. Now, this is while you're in the open. This isn't while you're behind a bush or any other cover. This is just out in the open. Your camo value is going to be 6.5% while stationary. While you're moving, while you're in motion, while you're moving, 4% camo value. And when firing, it's going to be a little less than 1%. It's going to be 0.95% camo value. Now you can get that camo value. You can get those camo values up, as everyone knows, with like camouflage net and putting camouflage on your tank. Putting camouflage on your tank, equipping camouflage on your tank, increases your camo values dramatically, guys. I'm not kidding. Even having brothers in arms increases your camo value. So, but let's talk about the battle performance of this tank for average players, or not even average players. Well, pretty much average players, because these are going to be the average statistics. So if you're an average player playing this game, accuracy when you're firing this gun is going to be about 77.3%. So hey, you know what? If you're hitting 77% of your shots, you're doing good in this tank. Even if you're a little bit less and low, you know that you're doing good in this tank. Your win rate in this tank is only going to be 48%. Your damage dealt per battle is only going to be 1,962. And your kills per battle is 1. So you know what? You go into a battle, you get a kill, you do 1,962 damage. Guess what? In my opinion, you had an average game. Could have been better. I mean, by far, this tank is capable of doing way, way better. But you have to realize of how many people are playing this game. How many are kids? How many are adults? How many people take this game seriously? How many people don't? You know, I really don't take this game seriously. Now, don't get me wrong. I do try and win. But you know what? If I win, I win. If I don't win, hey. I learned a long time ago that I'm going to get donkeys on my team. And there's nothing that you can really do about it. Let's go into that. No matter what you say to your team or what you strategize with your team, if they don't listen, or if they don't want to listen, or they don't want to communicate, or whatever's going on, there's nothing that you can do about it. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to bitch and moan and cry and complain about it. You know, just go with the flow. I mean, if they're being donkeys, be donkey with them. That's how I see it. If your team wants to be donkeys, be a donkey with them. Don't go out there all by your lonesome. If they're not doing right and you know the right positions to get into, don't go out there by yourself. Be donkeys with them. Sit with them. Hell. Maybe the enemy team will focus on them and you can fire at the enemy and keep yourself alive. Maybe you guys might be able to pull out a win. Maybe not. But hey, you know what? Things happen. This isn't like a competition, guys. I mean, it is just a game. I do know that some people do take this game seriously. They're hardcore gamers. But for me, that's how I see it. Not that much of an importance to me. Now, I'm going to leave you guys with one replay. In my tank, I do believe it might be a mastery badge. I believe I might get my mastery badge in this tank at the replay I'm going to show you. I'm not for sure. I forget which one I've chosen out for you guys. Hold on. I need to see if I even have my mastery badge in this tank. AMX50B. No, I do not have a mastery badge in this tank yet. I only have the 3rd class mastery badge. It may have been a 3rd class mastery badge. Heck, I don't know. But as you guys can see, my win rate in my tank is 75%. I've played 8 battles. Like I said, I haven't played that many battles in this tank, but I've played 8 battles. I've won 6 and I've lost 2. And my hit percentage is 83%. Now, I've only survived, as you guys can see, only 50% of these games. Um, but out of those 8 battles, I've destroyed 11 enemies. So, I mean, this tank is... So if that's any perspective as how good I'm doing in this tank right now, it's pretty good. And these French tanks are being a beast. If you guys take a look at my Foch, which I'll be doing a replay here, I'm going to go ahead and get this out of the way because I'll be doing this next one. It's going to be the Foch, guys. But I haven't played very many battles in this either. I've only played 19 battles. I have 12 victories and 7 defeats, so that's a 63% win percentage. I don't know what it is about these French tanks, but I'm getting great win percentages right off the bat in these tanks. They are very, very... And out of these 19 battles, I've destroyed 29 enemies in this Foch. This Foch is a beast, let me tell you what. And I've survived 53% of my games. So, you know... Some tanks, you know what, are just good, just bad. But for me, it seems like these 2 tanks here, I mean, yes, I've only played 8 battles, but I'm loving these 2 tanks right here. So I hope whenever I get the bat chat, guys, that I'm going to love the bat chat. Right now, I only have the AMX 1375, the famous little light tank, the AMX 13. There's several variants of the AMX 13, but the 75 is the one that we are going down the line with. But got out of control there. We need to talk about supplies in this tank. Now, I've gone with all armor-piercing rounds in this tank. But if you were to load armor-piercing composite rigid rounds, you want a good armor-piercing to armor-piercing composite rigid round. You want a good, as I want to say, you want a good standard ammunition to premium ammunition ratio. Now, what that means is you don't go half and half. That's usually a bad idea. What you want to do is, look, you have 56 rounds. So, you know what? It gets 4 rounds in a clip. So, there's 4. There's 8. There's 12. So, I would either go with 12, probably 16. It still leaves you with 40 rounds, leaves you with 16 armor-piercing composite rigid rounds. 16 is a great number. It's above half. If you add another 16, it's going to be 32. So you know what? 16 or 12 is a good standard ammunition to premium ammunition ratio. Because to be honest, you get 257 millimeters of armor penetration, and if you know how to use your gun, that 257 millimeters is going to be no problem at all. Now let's talk about consumables on this tank. I would not go with the small repair kit. I have a small repair kit, but I do use a large repair kit on this tank. You want to use a large repair kit. The reason why I say you want to use a large repair kit, because this tank is lightly armored. Lots of things on this tank get destroyed. Your turret gets messed up, your gun gets messed up, your tracks get messed up all the time. Lots of things on this tank get messed up. It wouldn't even be bad to get a large first aid kit as well. Your gunners, like I said, if your loader goes down, like I said, your commander or stuff like that goes down, you're losing your loader. Your large first aid kit is very, very good. Now, like I said, this tank only has a 15% chance of getting set on fire. So what I would go for in this tank is strong coffee. Strong coffee is going to improve everything on your tank, and it is for the entire course of the battle. You know, it's going to help you with your speed, your acceleration, your aim time, your accuracy, your camo values, your reload time. Everything that you can think of, this is going to help. And if you have brothers in arms, that's 15%. You're adding 15% to skills to your tank, guys, and that is pretty good. So, in reality, you don't even need fire extinguisher on this tank. Large repair kit, large first aid kit, strong coffee, guys. let's talk about equipment that you're going to want on this tank. You're going to want improved ventilation class. That's 5% to all your crew skills. So that's going to add 20% to your crew skills, guys. If you have that strong coffee, you have brothers in arms, and you have this, that is an increase to all your crew skills. That is going to be excellent. And this, the enhanced gun lane drive, you're going to want this. 10% to your aim speed, and you're going to want a vertical stabilizer, 20% to accuracy during movement and turret rotation. You do not want anything else on this tank. This here is the equipment that you want. Improved ventilation class, enhanced gun lane drive, and vertical stabilizer. You put anything else on this tank, it's going to do you no good. A heavy spall liner is going to do you no good. You are lightly armored. Getting hit by artillery and having a spall liner on your tank, it's not going to help you at all. Putting camouflage net on a heavy tank, come on guys, ain't going to help you at all. Putting binocular telescopes on your heavy tank is not going to help you at all. Coated optics is not going to help you at all. I mean, it is. It's going to help you spot tanks, but you know what? You're a big ass target. As soon as you fire your gun, you're spotted. It's pointless. What do you plan on doing? Hiding the entire game? Don't think so. So, but yeah, with that in mind, I'm going to leave you guys now with your replay. Replay will be from my live stream, streaming with my, so... Alright guys, so here we are. We're on a standard battle here on Steps, and okay, I guess I'm gonna go right. As you can see, I spawned on the north part of the map. Now, usually whenever I'm on the north part of the map, I usually go left side. This is from my live stream. But it looked like the majority of our tanks were going to the left, so I felt like I needed to turn and go right, because as you guys saw right off the bat, I started to go towards the left and then realized I needed to go right. So my plan here is I'm going to come over here and try and support the tank destroyers now. Coming over here to the right side, I feel like you have to push very, very hard, very, very aggressively if you're in a fast tank. And this tank is fast. Right here you guys can see the speed of this tank. I'm wanting to get into a fairly aggressive position. And I know I can do that with this tank. I'm pushing hard. Now see, that tank there, he kind of stops, but I feel like you have to get here to about where these rocks are. If you're sitting out in the open on that other side, I feel like artillery can hit you. I want to get here in this position. I don't want these guys to come out and use this rock to shoot at our guys. So I'm playing a fairly aggressive position. I feel like I can do that as long as I can conserve my hit points and not to be too careless. So we'll see how this works out. This is from a live stream quite a while ago. But here we go. Here's an E100. One shot. Two shots. 3. As you guys can see, this gun is very, very good. Very, very accurate. All 4 shots pin, just like that. As you guys can see, I was using that rock. I was angling the front of my armor there. If you can angle the front of this tank, it ricochets fairly good if off that upper plate. So I was using this rock, angling. This tank you cannot side scrape in, which I'm doing right now. This is side scraping. but I'm not exposing my tank. The French tanks and American tanks in particular, and even some of the British tanks, most of the British tanks, have very weak side armor. So very hard to side scrape in. Now here we go. Another tank here. Not even really aiming, just shooting at this tank. All the shots are going in. Boom. Dead. This is how accurate this gun is, guys. Keep this tank moving. Keep the gun firing. This gun is very accurate. You don't want to be sitting still shooting this gun. Now there was a Death Star or the FV215 B183. Used my last shot to track him. I didn't want him to get back into cover. I was hoping one of my allies from behind me there could get some hits on him. But whenever I was there by the corner, I was waiting for him to fire his gun before I came out. I knew he had already fired. That's what I was basically waiting for. Now here we go, Tiger 2. I'm gonna bull rush him. There's nothing that he's gonna be able to do to me. I know it. I wanted to get a ram on him, but couldn't. Now he's trying to side scrape, but not with this gun. Ain't gonna happen, Tiger 2. Get out of here with that. Now, if that was an IS-7 or an E100 side scraping or a mouse, no way that gun would have pinned. But a little old Tiger 2, he was an angle. If he was trying to side scrape, he needed to be more of a better angle than that. But what you guys saw there was the Tiger 2 trying to side scrape. For some of you guys who don't know what side scraping is. The German tanks and Russian tanks are very good at side scraping. So now there's only 2 tanks left on the enemy team. We've won this. Hardly took any casualties on our team. Very, very good game. Me and my streaming buddies did pretty good here. So the only thing that's left now is the artillery. Now what happens at the end of the game, I've been having this problem, well, not this problem lately, but it happens from time to time. I don't know if it happens to some of you guys or not, but my game will freeze and the results won't be shown, and then after about 30 or 40 seconds or so, then the game unfreezes and the results show up. So I thought my game had froze, so I kind of cut the stream and had to piece it together. But as you guys can see, this is a victory. I hope I showed you guys how to play this tank. Here's the battle stats, silver earnings and stuff. Even if I didn't have a premium account, I would have made 65,000 silver. Very, very good game. This was my double. This was only a Mastery Badge Class 3, guys. So, I mean, it was a fairly good game, but that's what I like to do on steps. If I would have spawned on, if there wasn't so many people going to the left, I would have gone to the left. This tank does so much better out in the open, and here you go. Here's the battle stats. I hope you liked and enjoyed. Thank you for watching.